Hi everyone, Liz here. I thought I would do a more personal introduction for this month's Kawaii Craft Kits. I hope that all my subscribers and future subscribers feel inspired to make lots of unique and creative projects from these boxes. Alright, so this is the February box and the theme is UV resin, and we are going to be doing some open bezels using this box, open bezels. And so here we go. So this is the box, and right on top we have this, well, we have this whole package here, but on top we have this pin, and this was illustrated by jade.grove, and she's on Instagram if you want to go check her out. And it's really cute, and it ties into one of the bezels that we'll be seeing later. And then this is the supply list for the month. And then on the back I have some tutorials for some open bezels, but I'm not going to show you that because those are a secret for my subscribers. So yeah, but that's February. And so this is the pack, and you can take the ribbon off, and we will move the box out of the way. So, open it, and it is bubble wrap just to keep everything nice and secure. And this month there are a lot of items. So now I'm just going to go through all the items really fast. We have this sheet of transparent film with designs and words on it. We have this set of clear labels, and it'll make more sense when I go into my tutorial. We have this UV resin torch, which will be used to cure the UV resin. Speaking of which, here is the UV resin in clear and then 5 colors. This one is opaque, and then the rest are a clear color. We have this like embellishment bag, I guess you could call it, with some metal findings and some shapes of glitter that are like mixed different shapes. We have this bag of findings, and so there's 2 star keychains, a gold tassel, and then a gold lobster claw keychain. We have this tool set, which I think is really cute. So here's a close-up of the tool set. We have a little mini spoon, this what I would call like a file, and then a needle tool. And then I have this little baggie full of jump rings, and there is gold, blue, pink, and black, and some different sizes. And then we have, this is doesn't look like much in the bag, does it? But it is a silicone mixing cup, and so this is used if you want to put the resin in first and like add embellishments, add your own coloring, do whatever you want with it. And then we have, before I go into the bezels, we have this mystery item. You'll have to watch till the end of the video to find out what I use this for. Finally, we have this bezels bag, which I will go into. Alright, so here are the bezels, and to start out with, we have these wind chime bezels, and there are 2 designs. There's one with a sakura fan on it, and then each one comes with this little hanging tassel, I guess you call it. What do you call this part of a wind chime? If you know, let me know. And they come with a gold jump ring to attach once you're done with it. And then there's also a Mount Fuji design, which I will be doing a tutorial on in just a second. So then we have the black acrylic bezels, and I tried to give each person different styles, so your styles will vary. And then finally we have this gold round bezel, and it has some ridges inside, and this is really handy for making a shaker bezel, so that's what we'll be doing in this video. So moving on to the tutorials, there will be 3 projects, and we will be doing 3 different techniques for open bezels, and we'll be using 3 different styles of the open bezel. So this first one, we will be making this waterfall open bezel, and this is also, you could call it a shaker bezel. So we're just going to be using that gold round bezel for this project. So the first step for this bezel is to apply a thin ring around one of the ridges inside the open bezel. It doesn't really matter which side you start on. but just apply a thin layer, and then you put down one of these clear circles and you like push it gently just to make sure that it covers the entire circumference of the circle, and then you go ahead and cure it. And one thing to note is if you're working with this acetate, or if you're working with the plastic transparency film later on, do not use any flame to pop the bubbles, because this will cause the film to warp and it will warp your piece as a result. So don't do that. Use either a toothpick. You can use the straw method where you take a straw and you like blow into it onto your piece. But do not use a flame. Even though I find that to be the best method for popping bubbles, you don't want to warp the plastic or risk burning it. So yeah. So then what I'm doing next is mixing up the liquid that I want to put inside the bezel. And so I use a combination of clear Elmer's school glue in addition to some distilled water. And I'm not entirely sure what the ratio is. I think I used a lot of glue. Maybe it was about half and half. But you just kind of like mix it up and then see how like goopy it feels, and then you can put some embellishments inside and see how they like fall into the into like your wherever you're mixing up the liquid in, to see how it will react inside the bezel. So once I'm happy with the consistency, I go ahead and either you can add the embellishments directly to the water, but I like to add them directly to the bezel just because then they don't get like stuck in the cup where you're mixing it into. So I go ahead and I add them directly to the bezel, and then I pour the liquid over. And also this is good because then the pieces will be at the bottom and they won't be floating at the top if you like poured them in with the liquid, if that makes sense. So once you do that, pour just enough to where it like goes even like a little bit under the like the final ridge of the bezel, because we're going to be sealing it up later once it's ready to be sealed up. So then once you're satisfied with the amount of embellishments that you put inside the bezel and the consistency of the liquid, go ahead and stick it carefully inside a freezer. And I was surprised by how little it took to freeze this, the time-wise. I let it go for probably over an hour, but less than 2 hours, and it was completely solid. So then once it's completely solid, and I'd even give it a little bit more time just to make sure, you pop it out of the fridge or the freezer, and then we will finish it off. And then the final step is to kind of do the same thing we did in the beginning, but on the other side. So I apply a ring of resin around where the top of the ice has formed and where the ridge is. And then I put another of those clear circles on, and then I cure it. And then to make it extra secure, I added another like layer of clear resin on top just to make it like thicker. You can do the same thing on the other side if you want. And then I also made another piece where I didn't use the clear film, I just kind of applied the UV resin on top of the ice. And I found that didn't work because like when you use the UV torch, it will melt the ice. And so I found that it was causing leaks. And also like it's prone to leak if you just use the UV resin itself, just because like it's hard to get like the entire surface area closed off. But with the clear circle, it all like pushes it down, if that makes sense. So I found that to be a more effective and like successful method of doing it. So then you are done, and you can like shake it and everything. When you cure it with the UV torch, it will actually melt most of the ice, and then so you can keep using the UV torch just to melt the ice if you want. I don't know if you're supposed to, but that's what I ended up doing. Or you can just let it sit and dry on its own. So yeah, and it's really pretty, and like I definitely want to play around with different consistency of the liquid to get mine to like move a little bit slower next time and stuff like that. So yeah, and so moving on to project number 2. So in the next tutorial, I want to show you that you can use polymer clay in your open bezels. And this is something that I discovered after making quite a few open bezels, and once I discovered it, my mind was blown. So basically you could just take polymer clay and fill in either the entire bezel or just portions. I like to fill in just portions of it and then fill in the rest later with UV resin because it creates this cool like texture contrast. So yeah, and then you can experiment with different materials and such. I really like the juxtaposition of different materials. So here I am using some metallic silver clay from Mount Fuji, and then I'm also using some white clay from Mount Fuji as well. And you can also try and experiment with air dry clay. I haven't done it myself, but I would think that it would work pretty well. You just have to wait for it to dry. So I did the faster method of using polymer clay, and then I baked it in the oven for 15 minutes once I was done filling in the portions that I want, and the bezel will be fine in your oven. It won't melt or destroy or anything. So yeah. So once that's cooled down from the oven, I am going to be using some of the film for the first time in this video, and so I already cut some out for a different project I used for a personal project, but this is that I'm going to be using right now is like a wave pattern, ocean pattern, so I'm going to be using it behind the waves in the bezel, and so I just kind of like measure and, well, I trace it, and then I cut out the appropriate shape, and then the shape should fit like behind the bezel but not like poking through to the other side, if that makes sense. And then I like tape it, or not really tape it, I glue it kind of to the back of the bezel using like a thin line of UV resin, and then I cure that. And then I flipped it over and I put it on top of one of the clear labels included in the box. And then I'm also going to add the little tassel, still don't really know what to call this piece of the wind chime, to the bottom, and just to lay everything out. And so I'm going to be filling in the rest of it. And then once I'm done with the first layer of UV resin, I left a little bit of space in the tassel part because I'm going to put a word into it. And what do I mean by that is I'm going to take my transparency film and I'm going to cut out the kawaii word, the blue one, as small as I can without cutting any of the words or cutting any of the text off. And then I will place it into the bottom portion, still don't know what to call it. And then I'll put a layer of clear UV resin on top and cure it. And then on the back of the main part of this bezel, I have it flipped over to the back, and I apply a thin layer of the UV resin just to like make it extra shiny and add more dimension. And so just adding some of the clear UV resin, and then I use that one of the gym tools, the one that has like the bar type tool on the end, to spread it. And I found this really useful for that purpose. At first I was like considering or like wondering what uses that could serve, but I found this to be one like pretty handy method. It's a lot quicker than using a toothpick. The final step for this bezel is to attach the gold keychain that was included in the same bag that the bezel came in, making sure that both of the two parts are facing the same way. I made that mistake. And then you can turn it into like a keychain or a necklace or even like a brooch. If you have any other ideas of what to use your finished open bezels with, I'd love to know so that I can try it myself as well as tell others. So then the final project for this video, we will be using the black acrylic bezel, and these come with a plastic seal on both sides that you need to like peel off. It's kind of like a sticker, so go ahead and peel those off before you start crafting with them. So then I'm going to be using the film again, and this time I'm going to be using the galaxy design. And so I'm putting the bezel on top and like holding it as I trace out the circle that I want to make, and then I use a X-Acto knife to cut it out. You can also use scissors, but I just find it easier to like do curves and things with the X-Acto knife. So that's what I ended up doing. And then yeah, you just put a thin layer of UV resin like we did for the other bezels when we added film, and then you push it down and cure the film onto the bezel, making sure that the transparency has like one side is a little bit more vibrant. So I usually make sure that that side's like facing inward so that when you look at the bezel, you're looking at the more vibrant side of the design, if that makes sense. So then I prepare the items that I want to go inside the bezel, and so I'm cutting out the dream. Wow, cutting out the dream, that sounds wrong, but yeah, I'm cutting out the word dream from the transparent film, and again making the cut like as close to the word without like cutting it into the text as possible. And then I also like gather the metal embellishments I want to add, and then I will be placing those in the bezel. So I apply a thin layer of UV resin first. And when I say thin, I say I filled it up about half of the way or more. And yeah, I left like a little bit of room for like a final layer at the end. But yeah, so then I added the metal embellishments and the positions that I wanted them, and then I added the word, and then I used the needle tool to like move them around and manipulate them in the resin. And then once I was happy with that, I cured it. So then I attached the bezel to this bookmark, which that's what this like black cardstock, it's made out of mat board. That's what that shape is to turn one of the round black acrylic bezels into a bookmark. And so I use a layer of the clear UV resin. I actually like take it out of the bottle first, and then I use like either the needle tool or the bar tool to add just like a really thin line on the bookmark. And then I kind of like put it on vertically, and then I put the bezel on top, and then I cure it. But I make sure that the torch isn't really, like when I cure it, I make sure that the torch isn't touching my fingers because it can get really hot. So I would either like make sure that you don't get too close to the actual like light of the torch makes, or I would wear some gloves or something like that. So just be very careful. And then once I had like that bond created, I went in with the black UV resin, and I kind of added a line to kind of like secure it more onto the bookmark, as well as like kind of like blend more seamlessly, if that makes sense, into the bookmark itself. And then I would recommend the back of the bookmark is a white color, so I'd recommend like painting it black, just because I ended up like dripping some UV resin down the back. So I'm going to go ahead and make mine black on the back. I'm going to go ahead and paint it. But then yeah, and then the final step is to attach the tassel, which I find really satisfying. And then you are done with this project, and that is the final project for this video as well. So here are all the open bezels I ended up making this month, and some of them were to test the products before I sent them out in the subscription boxes, and then some of them I made for this video. So I hope they will give you some inspiration as to what to do. Even if you are not subscribed to my box, if you are interested in making open bezels, I hope you find this helpful. And if you're not subscribed to my box, I'd love to have you as a subscriber. But otherwise, I'd also love it if you would join me on my Instagram and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We can like chat there. If you have any questions about crafting, craft supplies, that sort of thing, feel free to ask me, or feel free to like share ideas that you have related to this video or related to the other crafts that I do in my videos or on my Instagram. I'd love to learn as much as I can. I've been doing these types of crafts for quite a while now, but I still learn new things quite often, like with using the polymer clay and the bezel. So if you have anything like that, please let me know, and I think it'll be really fun to try out different methods. And other than that, that's the end of the video. So thank you for making it this far, and I hope you look forward to the next month's video, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!